Okay, I want to call the meeting to order. Ms. Secretary, you want to take a voice roll call vote?
Yes, just respond that you are present. Edwards?
Present.
Greenwell?
Here.
Martinez Brooks? Present. And David Holt? And surrogate trustee Mark Stonecipher? Stonecipher? Craig Freeman?
I'm here.
And then for the record, Chris Browning, the general manager, is in attendance. Francis Kersey, the secretary. And Craig Keith, are you present?
Present.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chairman, roll has been called.
Thank you.
This is Mark Stonecipher. I just joined the call.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. We have several items to consider. First of all, the minutes of the March 17, 2020 meeting of the Water Utilities Trust meeting. I would ask for a motion that they be accepted.
Move the item.
Motion to approve.
Been moved and seconded. We'll vote. How do we
I'll call
vote?
roll.
Okay.
Edwards? Yes or no? Okay.
Yes.
Greenwell?
Yes.
Martinez Brooks? Yes. Stonecipher?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the consent docket. I would request approval of the entire consent docket at this time. Recognize a motion to that effect.
Move
approval subject to individual considerations.
Thank you. There's a second.
Yes.
Who'd like to take the vote?
Yes, I will call for the vote. Edwards?
Yes.
Greenwell?
Yes.
Martinez Brooks?
Yes.
Stonecipher?
Yes, please.
Freeman?
Yes.
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you. Next item is the concurrence docket. Would suggest that we approve it subject to individual consideration, and I would recognize a motion to that effect.
Move approval.
Move the concurrence docket subject to individual recognition.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Are there any items that anyone would like to discuss? Seeing none, I would request approval.
Edwards?
Yes.
Greenwell?
Yes.
Martinez Brooks?
Yes.
Stonecipher?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Motion was approved unanimously.
Thank you. Next item is an emergency construction contract by resolution. We require 4 affirmative votes. I will read this. Resolution ratifying the actions of the general manager and declaring an emergency, approving bidding documents and awarding contract to Matthews Trenching Company, Inc., Project SC 1062, Emergency Sanitary Sewer Repair, Northwest 36th Street and I-44 Highway, $250,000, ratifying issuance of an emergency work order and approving contract and bonds. I would recognize a motion to that effect.
Move the emergency resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would like to take the vote?
Edwards?
Yes.
Greenwell?
Yes.
Martinez Brooks?
Yes.
Stonecipher?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Motion was approved unanimously. 4 affirmative votes was submitted.
Thank you. We now have items for individual consideration. First one, resolution declaring the intent of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust to expend certain funds in connection with certain water and wastewater system improvements, with said expenditures to be reimbursed from the proceeds of debt to be incurred by the trust and containing other provisions relating thereto. And there will be 4 affirmative votes required for approval. Francis, would you like to take on the call?
We need a motion and
Move the
second.
resolution. Move the resolution.
Second.
Thank
Been
you.
moved and seconded. I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, Edwards,
Yes?
Greenwell,
Yes.
Martinez Brooks,
Yes.
Stone Cipher,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Motion was approved with 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Next item, B, resolution agreeing to file an application with the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for financial assistance through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Loan Program for the purpose of financing the expansion and improvement of the trust facilities, approving and authorizing 1 or more drinking water state revolving fund loans from the Oklahoma Resources Board in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $74 million, approving the issuance of its promissory note or notes in 1 or more series in the total aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $74 million, secured by a subordinate lien pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of loan agreements for drinking water state revolving fund loan, designating a local trustee, and approving and authorizing the execution of trust agreements, approving and authorizing the execution of security agreement, ratifying and confirming certain utilities lease agreements, approving various covenants, approving and authorizing the disbursement of trust funds in connection with the referenced loan or loans, and payment of fees and expenses, and containing other authorizations and provisions relating thereto. I
Move
would
approval.
call. Okay. Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Will you take the roll, please? Francis?
Edwards,
Yes?
Greenwell,
Yes.
Martinez Brooks,
Yes.
Stone Cipher,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Approved with 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Next item, C, resolution agreeing to file an application with the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for financial assistance through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Loan Program for the purpose of financing the expansion and improvement of the trust facilities, approving and authorizing 1 or more Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan or loans from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $4,650,000, approving the issuance of its promissory note or notes in 1 or more series in the total aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $4,650,000, secured by a subordinate lien pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of loan agreement or agreements for Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan, designating a local trustee and authorizing the execution of trust agreement or agreements, approving and authorizing the execution of security agreement or agreements, ratifying and confirming certain utilities lease agreements, approving various covenants, approving and authorizing the disbursement of trust funds in connection with reference loan or loans, and payment of fees and expenses, and containing other authorizations and provisions relating thereto. And we need 4 affirmative votes on that as well.
Move the
Edwards
resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Edwards says yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Greenwell,
Yes.
Martinez Brooks,
Yes.
Stone Cipher,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Approved with 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Are there any items from trustees?
Not today.
No.
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 Very well. General Manager's report, you're in charge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to give a little bit more detail on the pro forma. I'm sure you all have read that we're proceeding as normal. Keep in mind, most of this report was for conditions prior to our current COVID-19 conditions. We stopped disconnecting water for non-payment around mid-March. And this report does not really reflect the impact, where it suggests that our revenues and our expenses are tracking as normal. From March 15th to the end of March, we had about 5,000 delinquent accounts. Normally, we deal with 300 or 400 delinquent accounts daily, but we resolve those issues within a few days, and water services restored with payment or payment plan in place. That's the norm. So the new norm is we have about 5,000 delinquent accounts, and we don't anticipate those accounts will be paid in full anytime soon. That number has grown from 5,000 at the end of March to about over 7,000 now. In addition to that, most delinquent accounts averaged about $175 in arrears, and now they're tracking over $300 per account in arrears. We do have a reserve fund that we can manage through this crisis, and we're doing it quite well right now. The item that you approved earlier, where we could recover our cash through the next bond sale, will help. There has been some issue with the commercial paper market over the last few weeks, where it was very uncertain. We've had a number of conversations with our financial advisors and our tax advisors, and we did actually have to sell commercial paper earlier this month, and it came in pretty good. We had to sell $18 million, and we got it at 1.5%. We were expecting maybe 3 to 4%. So it stabilized somewhat. We are moving projects out unless they're absolutely necessary, so that we can keep as much money in reserves as possible. We do a pay-go of 60% finance, 40% cash. So we do have cash available to get us through this crisis. So I don't want anybody to feel that we're going to be in financial trouble here anytime in the foreseeable future. But we are managing very conservatively, and we expect to have conditions back to normal, but not in a month or two. We expect for these delinquent accounts to be repaid over some period of time, anywhere from 6 months to a year, because when people do go back to work, they're not going to have the money to repay all their debt at one time. So we're going to have to work with people. But we have that plan in place. So I want everybody to understand we're in pretty good shape, but we're having to manage very conservatively for now. And I'd be happy to answer any questions related to that.
No questions?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
The
you.
report was good to hear.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Are there any citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we will consider ourselves adjourned.